Okay, well, we're going back to South Africa. They're in force today, our South Africans, and I'm delighted to say that my next speaker is Graeme Codrington, and the title of his presentation is Same Planet, Different World, Building DNA into organisation and careers. Now, I know Graeme is an expert on the new world of work and multi-generational workplaces, amongst other things. Graeme, great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well, Nadine. It's been great to watch everybody so far. Great to be part of it now.
Wow, I love your backdrop. I want to swap places. That is so cool. Is that where you live? Is that home?
No. This is where I am actually at the moment. Out in a shed outside. The family kicked me to a shed outside. I'm just pretending I can travel. I love to travel, and I'm just pretending.
Great. Well, Graeme, I know you're going to help us discover, I think, the 3 key ways to build resilience and adaptiveness. So I'm going to hand over to you and wish you the very best of luck.
What I help clients to do is to anticipate disruptive change and prepare and plan for it. That's not something I've just been doing now. During the last few months, it's been something I've been doing for 20 years. My title is a futurist. Not that I can predict the future or know exactly what's happening in the future, but rather I present scenarios. I help companies think through the forces that are going to disrupt the world over the next few years, and then to put in plans for that. And all I want to do to share 2 thoughts with you. The first is that this COVID crisis gives us the opportunity to build the types of organizations that can survive any disruption. And that's the key. I've been talking to clients for 2 decades about living with disruption, about building adaptable organizations that are flexible to deal with anything that comes their way. And a lot of clients have been able to pretend, to hold off the future, if you like, and pretend that they are reasonably adaptable while this VUCA world, we've all heard the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world rages around them. Now you don't have a choice. Now the COVID spotlight is shone on you, and it's forcing you to realize that you can't just go ahead with your normal plans. I mean, what's your budget worth this year? What's your strategic plans worth this year? Nothing. And here's my first point to you. This is the new reality of the 2020s. When the COVID crisis is over, then you've got automation and artificial intelligence and robotics coming. And when that's over, you've got climate change and sustainability pushing towards that. So when that is over, there's going to be geopolitical stress. And when that's over, there's going to be a tsunami or an earthquake or a plague of locusts. Who knows what's going to happen after that? The point is, the 2020s was always going to be a decade of deep disruptive change. And COVID is just the first of a whole series of disruptions. So instead of just trying to survive COVID and come out the other side intact, what about using this opportunity to really build the adaptability you need in order to respond to any and all disruptions in the future? So that would be the second point then, which is that COVID is not just a crisis to be survived. It is an invitation to reimagine your business. So let me give you a little bit more detail behind that. Let's talk about adaptability first. Back in 2011, the United States Military Strategic Command, called STRATCOM, put together an amazing plan. It's been recently declassified. And for those of you who like this stuff, this is a genuine military document you can go and search for CONPLAN 8888-11. And you'll find it online, and you'll see, if you're looking at my screen, it was the counter-zombie dominance plan. This was the American military's plan for the zombie apocalypse. A few hundred pages of detailed planning for how the US military would respond to zombies. And some of you might be rolling your eyes, especially our American colleagues who we're going to hear from shortly, and saying, good grief, what a waste of money. No wonder we've got a budget deficit in our country if the military is wasting money like that. Except, I don't think the military was wasting money. Why did they do this, a zombie apocalypse plan? The reason was that they wanted to test their most strategic thinkers, to test their military planners, to see if they would be able to handle an enemy they had never encountered before, if they were able to deal with a threat that nobody had ever seen before, if they were able to use all of their systems and processes to deal with something that nobody was familiar with. And so instead of making up a hypothetical country and hypothetical threats, they went for the weirdest, the strangest thing. They could have chosen an alien invasion. They just went for the zombie apocalypse. And it's actually a remarkable plan to read through. What they were trying to do is not work out how to deal with zombies. They were trying to work out, what do we do when we don't know what to do? This is where a lot of our organizations are at the moment. We don't know what to do. We've never encountered this before. And we need to learn not merely how to get through the COVID crisis, but we need to learn how to build an organization that actually will thrive in a time when we don't know what to do. So that when we get into the next disruption and the one after that, we're even stronger, we're even better than we are now. Now, of course, the question you'll ask is, well, what does that look like? What are the things you need to do? And there, of course, we would need a few hours to go through the detail. Let me just give you one example of what you might want to do right now, what you could do and even start doing tomorrow. One of the biggest problems that non-adaptive organizations have is that the distance between authority and responsibility is quite large. People who have the responsibility to do something don't necessarily have the authority to do it. In most organizations, information flows to where the authority is. The people who really know what's going on, those are normally your commercial people, your frontline people, your customer relationship people. They know what the customers need. And that's absolutely vital right now, isn't it? During the COVID crisis, to speak to your customers and deliver them value. You've heard Olga, you've heard Martin, you've heard Jeff talk about this already in this session. So they've done that work, they know what to do, but now what happens? They've got an idea of what the customer needs, but they've got to bring it back to the sales manager, goes into a sales committee, who then speaks to the executive, who then has to have approval from legal and compliance, and risk must look at it. Then marketing wants to get involved to make sure that the contract is on the right Pantone headset, and back to the client. A few days later, and with probably a whole lot of revisions that the salesperson is not happy with, it eventually gets back to the customer. What we need to do is make sure that authority flows to where the information is. Especially in this time of deep disruption, we want our businesses to be agile, flexible, resilient. You know all the words we're using. So we've got to make sure that our frontline people are equipped, are empowered to make decisions in the moment to give the best service possible to their customers. How do you deliver what Jeff Ram talked about earlier in the session in terms of celebrity service if you don't give the frontline person the authority to actually do something? What I'm really saying, Nadine, is that we have to give up the illusion of control. We never actually had control. We've been living in a digital world for a few decades now. We've been living in a world dominated by knowledge workers for decades now, where we actually have control, but we pretend that we did, and we created reports and systems and structures and committees to give us the illusion of control. Now that we were all forced to work from home for a few weeks, and have all of those systems removed, the spotlight of COVID has shown us we've got way less control than what we did. And we've got to learn working that don't need control. So this leads then to my second point. That's just an example. There are lots of things we could talk about becoming adaptive. But the second point, to just briefly finish with, reimagine our organization. We had to improve Caterpillar, right? Make a better caterpillar. You might think a better caterpillar is a bigger, fatter, juicier caterpillar. So that's what we do. Or maybe you're thinking like a bird when you think that way. Maybe we more need to think like a caterpillar. A better caterpillar is a smaller, leaner, faster caterpillar. Maybe it's more colorful, maybe it's colorful. Some of you are ahead of me on this example, right? Because if all you try to do with a caterpillar is improve the characteristics that already exist, well, then you will obviously not get yourself a butterfly. A better caterpillar is a butterfly. This is where many of your organizations find themselves right now. You're in the middle of a COVID crisis that has forced you to change completely. Your strategy is out the window, your budget is a waste of paper. You've got to change this year. And now you've got two options. One, you can try and get back to normal as soon as possible. Or you can take the invitation of this crisis to reimagine your business, to reimagine it as a more adaptive business that is better at dealing with disruption, so that when the next disruption comes your way, you are much more prepared for it and your organization takes it in its stride. Nadine, that's what I help people to do, to build adaptive organizations, build adaptive leadership skills so that they can survive. Right now, we need it more than ever in the COVID world, but I think we're going to need it for the rest of this decade and beyond as well. After COVID is gone, we're going to live on the same planet, but it's definitely going to be a different world, and we can start preparing for that now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that was, so honest, that people need to have that dose of reality, but you do it in such a calm way, because actually crisis, if you handle them well, it's all about the backstory. So you can always prepare for crisis. It's how you communicate through the crisis as well. And I think you're right, actually. We were so excited about 2020s, it just sounded so good, but we're in for a pretty tough decade. I think what's interesting, actually, when I was looking at your profile on the Speakers Corner website, is the idea that you pull together the customer service, the innovation, and the technology, because they often sit in silos. And if you crack that code, what you're talking about becomes a reality. But too often, they are in silos, aren't they? So how can we help people watching and the clients that you speak to overcome that so they work harnessed together?
Well, I think right now there are two things that any leader or manager in an organization could focus their attention on. And many of the other speakers today have highlighted this and given details of how to do it. The first is focus almost entirely on customer value. What do customers really, really need right now? Not what were they buying from us, not, how do we do more of what we were doing, but what is the need of my customer? Of course, you have to speak to your customers and ask them that question. And not ask them to buy more of your stuff. Ask them, what do you really need now? What is the value I can give you? And I think that question will unlock a whole lot of things. In terms of how you engage and respond to customers. You may not be able to help your customer with some of the value that they're needing, but maybe you can point them somewhere and they will remember that you assisted them. But their answer to your question, what is the value you need right now, can also unlock a whole lot of innovation and creativity and adjustment from you. The second thing you can do as a leader or manager right now is to deal with the frustrations of your own team, the internal frustrations. Work is frustrating. And there are all sorts of things, whether it's just the fact that the printer is on the other side of the building and you've always got to click 3 different things to find the printer in the network and get it out, or bigger frustrations around how many layers of approval are required. It's the way things are done around. We heard from Steve earlier talking about that's just how it's done. You know what, in the moment we're in at the moment now, in this COVID disruption time, you've got a beautiful opportunity to just say all bets are off, right? We can do things differently now. And we are doing things differently now. And so look at the frustrations you have had, look at the frustrations you've got, and refuse to ignore them. And simply say, let's fix them now. I'll give you a practical example, Nadine. There's a whole lot of people I'm speaking to are saying, I can't wait to get back to the office. They don't mean they want to get back into rush hour traffic. That's a horrible thing to imagine in the commute, but they want to get back to the office. My question is, why? And they all say the same thing. I'm sure you'd say this. I need to connect with people. So then I say, well, how often did you connect with people before? You know, if you remember way back in January when you used to go to the office. And most of them pause for a second and say, you're right. You can go into the office, spend the whole day on your computer and go home again. And here's what you need to be doing to say, what am I romanticizing already after just a few weeks, romanticizing about the office? Let's make sure we get that. Go back to the office. Let's not go back to normal, just go back to how things were. Let's actually say, what do we really want to get from the office? And let's make sure we get it. And if you take that attitude to the next few weeks and months, you're going to come out the other side of this crisis in much better shape than even going into it, let alone now.
I think it is a golden opportunity. I think the environmental pressures that we've seen over the last decade and that are coming down the track as well, it's a perfect opportunity. I mean, we've seen how we've done things differently, how pollution rates around the world have dropped, and it's about seizing that moment. I think, as well as wanting to connect with people, I think it depends on whether the people who want to go back to the office have got young children or not. Fortunately, my children are much older now, and I think it would have been a very different experience.
Yeah.
But
you know, Nadine, that's actually a very important point. And this again reiterates what I'm trying to say. I don't think we're in the middle of a work from home revolution. I think we're in the middle of a work from anywhere revolution. So I agree with you. I've got older kids, it's been lovely. They do all the cooking, fantastic. If you've got younger kids, not so fun. But I don't think that the people say, well, I don't really want to work from home. I don't think they're saying by default, I want to go back to the office. I think we have disconnected ourselves from the office during this COVID crisis. And I think that will be a lasting legacy of COVID, that now the default setting will be, I can work from anywhere and I will, and maybe I'll come to the office if there's really a compelling reason to. I think that will change a lot of things in the next decade.
I think you're right there. Got a few comments coming in very quickly.
Yeah, sure.
The inverted pyramid is the way that the people at the coalface with the real experience and authority works best, in my opinion. Yep, you agree with that one. As a lady, Marlene van Ruyen, hopefully I've said your name correctly. Huge apologies if I haven't. Thanks, Graeme. Always enjoy you. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Marlene.
And then AK is saying, thank you, Graeme. It's always fascinating. I love what you said about companies and their customers. The days of desperately screaming, buy my stuff, are over. Best, Akai. Is it Akai? Hopefully I've said again. Huge apologies if I'm getting these names incorrectly, but we're getting the questions out there. So Graeme, thank you so much for your time. And we're actually going to be sticking with South Africa. Obviously, if you need any more details on Graeme, speak to the guys in the office. I know Dan and Nick are already taking the calls. They're beavering away together at HQ. And you can get the full biogs of the likes of Graeme and all his other fellow speakers online at Speakers Corner's website. Well, and that goes into the full details, all the awards, amount of experience, into some top rated keynote speakers today, not least Graeme. Thank you, Graeme.